didn't I? I used to normally when
Claire,
it's on.
can you slide that bottle, please? Just the one that's in there. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Recently, I published with my student Gaspar Pavé, ex-race worker, a paper, Biomechanics of Race Walking, Utility Overview and Insight. And I think in this paper there are more and more information for coaches. And on the first kinematics, one of the first questions is, which is the major determinant of increased walking speed, stride length or frequency? We put together all data found, but stride length and frequency are important. However, you can see that stride length increase more. Hence, in the major determinant, if the athlete have to increase walking speed, he has to increase his stride length. Is one of the practical consequences for this study. The bar shows flight time, which is not allowed but is reported, and you can see that it is increased with speed. Then it seems the stride length is achieved with the help of flight time. If you increase the step length, you reduce the flight time. When if I judge see this fly is a debated and difficult topics. Angles are very important. Unfortunately, these are few speed tested that we cannot yet see which, and the most important increases speed, but you can see the propulsive part of the stride. When foot is behind, it is greater. Then braking in order pushed for longer time. The practical application push in every, also during the drills for young athletes. From when the start of the career, the main suggest increase the push time, because it's a good education for the consequence during the maturity of career, and is a correct from biomechanical point of view. Which is fatigue effect on performance? Halley and colleagues measure some kinematics parameter at stride length, frequency and speed at different points in 20K and 50K race at the World and European Race Walking Cup during the competition. In 20K, speed decay was soon derived by a decrease in stride length. The same effect, the reduce of efficiency of neuromuscular system provoke the reduce of strength length. And in the last part, by a decrease also in frequency. In 50K, I have the data in the last 10 kilometers, they have at the same time reduce of strength and reduce of frequency. And that are one of the causes of the decrease of intensity, of the increase of fatigue. And the fatigue in this case is related for the control of central nervous system. And however, in laboratory condition, where speed was at zero constant to 12 km/h, Chris Walter and colleague, a team of race walking in French, did not find any changes, hence it seemed that length and frequency decay are related to race pacing strategy. Another important indication, you choose a good race pace strategy, because when you realize the first part more fast, in the second part you are consequently you are also then modify the biomechanical parameter for strength and length, for frequency and stride length. The other difference in men and woman technique. In race condition, it was found a decrease in stride length and feet position. However, these data are biased by different race speed. When compared at the same speed of service, women used lower length than men, higher frequency and higher flight time. This seems particularly interesting for training, since if you are able to increase stride length, you could gain more benefit with a female than a male athlete. I have another particular. The length of the feet of the woman are reduced. The woman choice naturally increase the frequency because the length of the legs and also the length of the feet not permit a long time duration of the push phase. But the women are one most important advantage. The turn of the hips are very easy. If you increase the turn of the hips during the push phase, increase the push phase time. That are another practical concept. Another indication for the women are most important the strength neuromuscular aspect, because they are the limitation. The feet is not modified, it's anatomy, but the neuromuscular strength of the woman are more facility to modify than men. From natural, the evolution of nature we decide the men have more strength than women. And the woman we gain more strength if we realize the training of neuromuscular aspect. In order to work, athletes use their muscle. Joint power analysis is not so easy that analysis we realize only in a laboratory. To perform in track setting, but can give use important info which could be transferred in the training program. For example, from this work we know that the two main joints exerting power are ankle at the end of push-off phase and hip before and after heel strike. Oh, pardon. Generation of force, heel strike, and important the turn of the hip, because in this case you return to generate another impulse. Very, very good. And are more important the aspect of flexibility in the technical training, because the good rotation of hip guarantee the perfect angle. We gain the push phase, and we gain the force, we gain the advanced in right line. The ankle, the hip have another most important aspect. We absorb the oscillation, we limited the oscillation of central gravity, and we decrease the risk of the flight time. In conclusion, even researchers have given many results. Some aspects are still missing in order to give coaches a comprehensive overview of race walking technique over the whole range of the speed. It's a paradoxal. The science study now also the walking before are the particular aspect of race walking are the mystery. In 2040, but example, the turn of the two hips are not regular, are not the same. We not design 1/8 regular. He had one circle more, less one circle more important. That are the we define the advantage of adjustment of a split, but it are important. You know what are the circle more and what are the circle grid, because the consequence have two different push face from right or left legs.
You saying that everyone's born with a natural leg inside, or
Yeah.
a natural leg? The same as horses, a leg,
Yes.
a leg, and then.
It's naturally, but that are important, you know.
Mm.
Because if the range of difference from left to right are amount of 5%, you risk the injuries. Where you maintain from 1 to 3% is ideal disequilibrium from left to right. When you arrive other 3%, the more risk from injuries because you have a surcharge on left or right. This information are enough for coaching. More work is read of many biomechanical and bioenergetics aspects in order to understand what really happened to athlete at every speed and distance. Moreover, however, it's important that coach read this publication because every finding is important and could give you much more expertise and knowledge. Here is a good situation because more and more information arrive from Australian Institute of Sport. We have the best sport scientists, very in strictly relation for the coach, the athlete, and I discussed with Brent what are the modalities for coaches you use correctly this information, and this is one of the goals of this mission, etc. Performance profile, special topics in 20K men. In the 20K men race walking are increased the athletes able to express themselves on values not so far to reach the first place. That are the evolution from the World Championship from Rome to in another year to Moscow. For against the competition final always around 1 hour 19, 1 hour 20. Therefore, there is an improvement in the general time. The final line of this specialty are often covered to rhythm by competition indoor of brief distance. We discussed before in the last part of competition 20K in every situation 18 minutes and 30, 40 seconds under 90 minutes. That are the project of the race, that are the strategy, and we train it consequently. To reach the final phase of the competition and being able to determine a strong variation of rhythm, we think that the job is goals planned of the otherwise specifies extensive endurance. More important for me, in my experience, the strictly relation for high intensity training to transfer the power aerobic extensive training. There are a strict connection from the capacity of sustain for 15 kilometers, the race pace approximately 90% of VO2 max, and the last part if use correctly the contribution of anaerobic system. But that strategy we prepare a long time, and in my experience from the first phase of preparation we are present all the means of training. In the first microcycle, in my experience, at the top level athletes, immediately there are also the high intensity training. And during all the season, that are the representation, are not the traditional periodization, but yesterday I discussed with the other coaches, for me, the athlete, for top level athletes, are not the same for the medium level athlete. The top level athlete react to the training in a particular modality, and the ability of the coach are the modulation day by day of this reaction. And for me, that are the strategy for maintain the top level athlete competition and change the training day by day. And synthesis is necessary to have a resistance to the rhythm higher than the distance of the 20 kilometer. Besides, the ability of change rhythm under condition of work is imposed to all one reflection on the neuromuscular aspect of preparation we discussed before. All the competition of the race walking are strongly tied to the efficiency and functionality of the aerobic mechanism, but nowadays the neuromuscular aspects are not more negligible if wanted to be able to furnish power in special way in the final of the competition. That are the relationship from the first place to 8th place in World Championship. The same analysis in 20K. If you watch the 8th place in London, with the time of the 8th place in London, we gained the bronze medal in Atlanta. And that represented the evolution of the 20K. In particular, another particular aspect, we reduce the distance from the first to the 10th place at the same situation in Seoul, but is another era. That are the Olympic of the doping, I forget, okay? It's not good Ben Johnson, but not only Ben Johnson. After if you watch the time in 50K, tremendous. But now, from Beijing, Jared remembered very well the competition in 20K, and it changed the situation in London, increased the number of athletes we are performed to gain the podium, but only 2 under 1 hour and 19. I remember very well in Moscow, the last part, under 18 minutes and 35 seconds in the last part of competition. The media, the average of the first 10 in Olympic Games in Barcelona are a particular situation because they are in Montjuic, okay, that are the explanation, but continues the decrease of the average is more difficult to arrive on the podium. I think Rio are strange situation because study the particular climatic condition and the humidity, the pollution, but the same discussed regarding Beijing. I remember in 2007 I stayed in Beijing for one course of the coaching in race walking in China. At the same time, they have there are sport scientists American. We study the marathon situation. We signalize the risk of pollution. We suggest we running with the mask. The year later, Samuel Vangiro passed at the first half and marathon on the rhythm of the world record. and realized an impressive time, 2 hours, 05 minutes, and for Rio are the same. I think probably with training, in particular condition of humidity, we realized particular adaptation for maintain the same temperature in body. In Australia we have pre-cooling, the other possibility of vest, etc. But if we continue this evolution, in Rio I think the average are 1 hour 19 and 30, and more difficult for the podium on 20K. That represented the relationship for the first 1 to 8 in Olympic Games. I think that are important to know this data, because not only athletes arrive on the podium, every athlete is dreaming the podium, but one great result is arrive in the final. And one coach knows how many time is required for the finalists in Olympic Games, under 1 hour 20. Your project for Rio are 1 hour and 19 for gain the final. For gain the podium, you project one training, 1 hour 17. The world record. For if you have one athlete, he have the potentiality, the possibility of 1 hour 70, probably you have more possibility for arrive in the podium.
Coming back.
That's your project for tomorrow, Craig.
Come back.
He's done it twice. Just asking.
Anytime you return young and you restart another career.
Yeah.
That are the comparison from World Championship and Olympic Games are not the same. Are not the same. For me, that are important you know this data, because, example, for periodization of quadrennial cycle are different, example, from Jared and Dave Smith. Totally different. Jared had great experience, self-confident, focused only one great dream. I read your interview in IWF site, very appreciate, very clearly intention. So Dave Smith this year arrived in good performance in World Cup, good. Next time, in 2015, World Championship. It is possible in one championship arrive in 12th position. Very good results. For Jared, only one objective, podium. Are different. Are different the management, the training. For Jared, in my opinion, are important simplify the training. For Dave, is new discovery of different means, different situation, etc., etc. And this data help the coaches, help the athletes. When the athletes, coach, I want to win Olympic medal. Okay, please, that are the scenario. You are disposed to realize the hard regime of training will require that performance. You are every day concentrated. You live, you realize assignment training, very good. It's not enough, the training. The still of life are most important for emphasize the training session. In that, for the woman, the amelioration are most important. Why? The passage from the 10 to 20K, a methodological revision of training strategy has been done by substantially modify the job volume and to move it from the slow aerobic power to that specific aerobic endurance, also not neglecting when the necessary endurance to fail with success this longest distance has been built, the power job. During a career, a focus to reach the distance of 20K imposes one general revision of the construction of the walker. That means that since the juvenile category, the mental approach, the management of the recovery times, and the progression of the volume of job year by year changes. Also the technique will have to keep in mind of the time of the competition duration. At the first time in Seville, there are dramatically consequences because the first in 10K not have the first in 20K. Now, after Paris, after Helsinki, the athletes compete in 10K in a level, and if you, the 10th place in Moscow won gold medal in 7. That line represented the evolution of performance. In women, we benefit from methodological approach are the same of the men, but are different. The time of recovery are different. The little part, the contents of training. We require more attention to manipulate the environment because, okay, women are a great endurance capacity, but don't have the same strength of the men, don't have the same contents of hemoglobin in the blood. And the two parameters influenced the time of recovery. For the women, we require more attention in recovery strategies. During the youth age, are important to work on the mentality, are important to work in technical approach, emphasize from the first phase the push phase. When are the 10K the maximum of distance, it's easy the passage from 5 to 10, but from 5 to 20 is another world. We change the contents of aerobic, we change the distance of iron. We require some session 25, 30 kilometers. But the problem are not the aerobic, are the muscle, are the structure. And remember that problem when you start in career or young female wrestler. Okay, Osaka and Berlin, particularly, and Daegu, particularly climatic condition, but are very impressive the progression of the media, of the average of the first 10 in 20 kilometers. On percentage, the amelioration of the women are most important of the men. This represented the Ivanova era, is a particular athlete.
Yeah.
that are the real situation and observe. In Moscow, we reduced the distance from the first to eighth place. Also, for the men, they increased the number of women under 1 hour 30. 1 hour 30 representing the line of sub-elite athlete. If you want to go to win one medal in Rio, the project of training 1 hour 25. The project, no, realize the project. Because the evolution of Russian school are terrible. In London, we have a strong battle from the two Russian, very good athletes, and we reduced the distance of the first three position. The time of the 10 classified in London, it's enough to win in Sydney and Athens. This number represented the evolution of the capacity of performance of women in 20K. It's clearly.
So Antonio, yesterday you spoke about the magic number for the marathon.
Yeah.
What do you think it is for the women at the moment? Because
Marathon?
you're saying maybe in Rio will be 125. Think it's
Uh,
126, 127 at the moment, or
125.
still 125?
Because the Lashamova
Is young and
is young, but during the London competition, I watch. Never moment fatigue.
just the stretch, yeah.
Every moment you control. It explodes Russian cases because the politician, the coaches support Kiryakina, Kaniskina. Lashamova smiling in the last 2 kilometers. Chow, stay in total control of competition. The same situation before London in World Cup. The same situation repeat this year in Moscow. I hope it's only training result. It's only a hope. But from the technical point of view, the Russian school, the French, chapeau.
Yeah.
Because when more athletes, we work very, very well. Not all, in particular for the women. Also in the men in 50K, not good technique for all the competitors, but in general, the Russian school are very good at emphasize the push phase. My question are, when I observe one woman, we have the same strength, the same length of men, what are success? What are the explications? I don't have the answer. But for honesty coach, one important indication. We confirm the scientific approach. It is possible to work more for the woman for increase the length of strength. It is possible. We have more gain. Another relationship from 1 to 8th place in Olympic Games, strictly. And I think also in the women, in the last two competitions, because in Beijing, in Osaka, Beijing, Berlin, at the start, Kaniskina go solitary woman at another competition around Kaniskina. In the last two, we have the same situation of men. 15 kilometers, 6, 7, 8 women who compete in the front lane in the first group. In the last 5 kilometers, in 2 kilometers we changed dramatically the situation. In London, from 8 athletes we reduced 2 or 3 in 2 kilometers. In the last 3 kilometers, the battle on a ring, Lashanova Kaniskina. And also we require not only great capacity of aerobic, but also increase the neuromuscular capacity to change our rhythm, also for the women. And for me, that's a new challenge for training in 20K female. We arrived to the performance profile in 50K, and also in 50K there are more and more changes. That are the evolution from Rome to Osaka, and in the second part of the VIA, we have the last 3 World Championship. After we can observe the very evolution in Berlin, in Moscow, and after return in Olympic Games. And we have the reduction of distances from 1 to 8 place under 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 40 minutes, 80 minutes, under 5 minutes. Remember the Seoul game. "24 years ago." Okay.
It
Cancel
was
it.
cool. That soul was relatively cool.
Cancel it. But one reflection: 10 athletes average under 340. The contest is very competitive. In my opinion, on the past, I think in under 340, only the talent, only the athletes with particular talent. No. Now we have one group, and the leader are under 335. That are representing the relationship from first to 8th place in Olympic Games. The difference at the same time, repeat the same procedure. Jared don't think you know the situation of World Championship. You say, for one young are important to know this different number, because the strategy, the approach, the realization of training plan are different. And that one curiosity of my friend Brent. I need to read because I spend more time to this analysis. Some years ago, we decided to analyze the power decay of some of the best walkers worldwide. We did it analyzing the personal best in all distances, from 5 to 50k. We know that personal best in different lengths often are worked in different seasons, and that are, from scientific point of view, not correct procedure, but not all athletes realize performance in the same year from 5 to 50k. Okay. However, they show the power of athlete enjoying. Not all the athletes are all the time. Hence, for example, the Russian athletes have been excluded, however, of sample considered representative athletes. In this way, we could describe which is the split to add each kilometer from a no distance when walking a longer or shorter. For example, the mean split to add when these athletes walk at 20k compared to 10 is 4 seconds. This is a small value, and it's the smaller among distance, indicating an athlete's ability to keep the pace between the two distances. The largest, of course, is between 5 and 50k, because the two competitions are totally different. The last point from this data, a picture of two different athletes, the 20k and the 50k walker, with the last that a personal best is slightly lower, but lose power constantly at each step. Instead, the 20k athletes had a huge drop from 20 or 50. For me,
Is that
one-
per kilometre?
yeah,
Time per
kilometer,
kilometre,
is practical approach.
yeah.
It's important to know what decreased the power from 5 to 10. Example, in marathon, the marathon scenario changes when arrive in marathon the best performer in 10k race. We changes the content training. For me, it's important that athletes compete to all the distance. Why? During the out age are normal, but during the maturity, example, during the winter session, not with specific preparation, are good to compete for one athlete of 50k in the 5k indoor. Not only for various the training planning every day, kilometer, but also we verify the neuromuscular aspect. It's important for me to maintain almost strictly the difference from 5 to 10, from 10 to 20, from 20 to 20 to 30, and after from 10 to 50k. And this is the report from 5k and 50k. Robert Kozaniowski, one of the most athletes in the history of race sport, he won at the same time, the same Olympic Games, 20 and 50 in Sydney, 4 gold medals in 3 different editions of Olympic Games, 2 in Sydney, Barcelona gold medal, Atlanta gold medal in 50k, Sydney 20 and 50, Athens 50. Every winter I control, you realize, 3 competition of 5k indoor. Every winter. I discussed with Robert, why? No specific preparation, but I verify along the year What are the basis velocity? Because they're important for the central nervous system. Because they're important, you have the feeling with good technical approach at the high intensity. Because for me, I'm simply coach, no scientist, no complicated reason. If you work 80 minutes or 90 minutes in 5K indoor, it's with corresponding 3 minutes 48 by kilometer. It's easy to work 4 minutes and 20. 4 minutes and 20, if you maintain for 50K, are a good performance. A performance for the podium. 4 minutes and 18 seconds equal 3 hours 35 minutes. Very good. On pacing strategy is very important for long event like race walking. Usually is set before competition based on athlete capacity in order to avoid early fatigue and glycogen depletion in the 50K. However, sometimes the race changes all plan, then athletes have to be able to change their tactics hopefully without losing chains. Hanley did a very interesting analysis of the World Championships from Seville to Daegu. He collected the split every 5 kilometers of the finish and clustered them in 4 groups. Medalists less than 5% slower than medalists, between 5 and 10% and more than 10% or medalists. Here you can see split time for men 20K. Interesting, medalists adopted negative pace strategy, are the same in marathon. Going faster increase distance, whereas the within 5% group show a U shape with last split slower than before, which could be determined by fatigue or fast start. The other group had a positive split with more than 10% group going worse and worse. They walked to fast, even slower than medalists. First split in order to stay with other and after dropped off. Medalists 5% lower, the difference are here. In the last part of competition, it increased dramatically. Watch. Other the double of difference. The same pattern in the 20K woman. In the 20K women, this data for me suggests another strategy for real. If you have a coach of very good female top race worker, my goal are in Rio it's easy to talk, it's not easy to realize. Before here are the difference from man to woman, in particular on strength neuromuscular aspects. But for creative coach, they represented the area of instead the new means, the new method of training.
I tell you, in the women's marathon, do they run negative splits?
Yes, in the marathon we realized, but in marathon they have another problem, because in marathon it's possible the flight time.
Yeah.
And marathon, the women gain the mechanical efficiency. But also, I discussed with Brent, also for men and women, it is possible to gain efficiency in race work. In general, and in particular here.
Nice man, did she accelerate at the finish?
Yeah, example, we realized one of idea
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Stop holding back.
in training, 10 kilometer with some variation. Last part, 3 kilometer on hill, at the push of extremely hard. One of example. Another example, if I realize with the men, okay, in the last part on hill, 1 kilometer fast, 1 kilometer recovery, not many distance to the race pace. We arrived 200 beat for me. 200. But in this modality, you increase the capacity for elasticity of the muscle cardiac muscle. $50K is already say the length of this race include metabolic problematic. The mixture of glycogen and fat let athletes work slower than 20K, and also the strategy is positive. However, difference in performance level let starting this decade differently. Medalists increase their pace later 35-40 kilometers. Then the other increase the final time, the switch occurred before. Even more than in 20K, it is important to plan before the strategy based on the real athlete characteristics in order to spare glycogen for the last 10K. I think that is one of the idea of Jared to reflect for the new approach to arrive in Rio. For me, this number suggests different strategy. The metabolic problem remain. Metabolic problems are increased choice, the means for increase the fluid or mixture of acid, grass, and carbohydrate. But here, what are the strategies? You start, example, okay, my dream in Rio are 3 hours, 33 minutes. Okay. Constant space, that's good. But Ron Clark, remember, in Tokyo, world record in 10,000 meters, he arrived at the known American athlete, native Indian, and the last lap we won the gold medal at the risk. But it's one study. In Edmonton, Korzeniowski realized the first grid variation from 20K to 40K. For me, that's important. You study all the competition for the winner, and you adopt my suggestion. Your feeling here, normally, we decide the podium. But we have also the possibility to decrease this decay. I don't have the solution, but this number increase my fantasy for realize other combination of training are necessary if you want the gold medal. If you want the gold medal, you are the risk, but normally your with experience suggests the very good feeling for the situation of the different athletes. You stay in the same condition of one best athlete, Italian athlete in 3000 steeplechase, Alessandro Lamborghini, in 3 consecutive Olympic Games, 4 place, 4 place, 4 place. At the 4 Olympics, bronze medal. In every Olympic Games, we remain only one Kenyan. In every quadrennial Olympic, we change. You have the same situation for Russian athletes. And that's not the problem. You work in 2014, 2015 for elaborate different strategy to surprising the Russian athletes. Because I think China's athlete good, but Sandro are only the consultant, not the public chief this year. Good athletes, but I think the Russian are probably the best competitors also in Rio. What are the changes in 20K race? The same consideration on the advanced physiology of endurance athlete. We changed the relationship for viral intensity, combined strength endurance training and training load monitoring. I surpassed this year at the same of the presentation before, and we have also that consideration. And if in the intensity is very high, the performance during intense exercise can be improved, and endurance performance maintained even with a reduction in training value. Control, control, control. But for me, the only way are there. Because that's impossible to think into project 10,000 kilometers. We have no guarantee if you increase the volume, increase the performance. Only the German Democratic Party realize this, but we have another result. Example, this one of training of Ivano in the 2007, we prepared the Osaka repetition, 10 repetition in 1000 at 110–115% of race pace, and control the lactate, and a significant increase after the concluding in 3 minutes 40.0, 1 minute recovery, and the objective is arrive at 30-second recovery. Because it's not possible to think to realize 3 minutes and 20 are not working running. Also 3 minutes and 40, there are more problems on the technical flight time phases, but that are one of the example of training. In June, another example, it's important for me, the 2 days. 1 day, 4 series, 1000, 2000, for 3 minutes of recovery, very good results, under 8 minutes, and series by series reduce the time of 1000 and reduce the time on 2000. But for me, and most important, the day after, 20K in 1 hour, 25 minutes. that are the signaling we recovery very good and also progressive in the last 10K. Step by step, that are the beat mean and the stimulus around 90% heart rate max. That this dia, Brent know very well, we discuss in Leeds, we discuss my approach at the altitude training. I discuss with the community coach. It's my way, not is the law. I respect the other choice, but for me, all the choice, living high, training low, are good. Living high, training high are good. In my experience, as the best experience in altitude training, before the Sestier camp, 22 days, we stayed 9 days at 3,500 meters. A special super altitude, we realized 20 hours per day at 3,500 meters. We descend on 1,600 meters only for 2 hours for training. The difficult, the first night are sleeping, not jet lag problem, oxygen problem. But when descend from 3,500 to 2,100 meters, the athletes, Ivan, Alessandro, and the other athletes, the feeling are the same as sea level. And we realized in 22 days, 12 sets of high intensity training that are the last training at 2,100 meters. Particularly, 2 sets for variation are the same race pace. In Athens, Ivano maintained 3 minutes 5,859 by kilometer. Here are in Sestier, 2,100 meters, he walked at the same race pace of Athens. I repeat that my philosophy, strength, I discuss more and more, only the last part of my presentation regarding the training log and monitor. The ability to monitor exercise intensity during an effort can be used to provide important feedback to the coach regarding the training stimulus applied to the athletes. In the last year, I used RPA, provide an alternative valid and time-effective method to quantify the exercise intensity. My error, my fault in the past, I don't use RPA in altitude. It's great error for me. Because if you use respiratory training before the altitude training, we reduce the sensation, the first sensation of athletes, the first difficult are respiratory. If you use respiratory training before, we reduce this problem. We reduce the time of the adaptation. In more experience, and after 10, 12 years of staging altitude, at the first day, okay, we go fast. In the first stage for young, slowly, for 5 days to adapt to the altitude condition. But in the body, in the mind of the athletes, top level athletes, exists a memory. You know the condition of hypoxia. And you are ready to work immediately. In the classical approach, in the physiological classical approach, you are needed 3, 4, 5 days to adaptation. We don't have 3, 4, 5 days not spent in training section. The ideal duration of staging attitude, 3, 4 weeks. If you have 3 days for adaptation, the other 3 days of the final of stage for readaptation, what are the training? It's important to realize before the altitude stage training session more intensive. We arrive in good condition, in optimal condition in altitude. And my suggestion, my experience with the marathonists recently, respiratory training reduce the disadvantage from we arrive in altitude. Example of RPS section, you know very well, because more and more sport scientists of sports realize with Impellitteri is my student in the past, is one of the best sport scientists now in the world, assess the internal load, training and race, and influence the training periodization. The overall conclusion, never forget the technical aspect. To favor qualitative aspect of the training. To input further power stimulus on an already high specific endurance. Training load monitoring always, a close relationship between different race distance, Olympic and not, from 5 to 50 km. Plenty questions.
No, I'll say it for one. So the respiratory training you were referring to, when you're talking about intermittent hypoxia.
Yeah. And also in Europe, particularly diffusion, Spirotiger is elaborated from one Swiss scientist, you know, name, consisting in push on forced expiration in bowl from 3 to 5 liter, and the problem is the best athletes are more strong chain of muscle expiratory. It is possible to increase inspiratory muscle. And then also the positive reflection on postural aspect. No gain the end value, but gain the capacity of inspiratory muscle and coordinate for long expiratory. And before the altitude training reduced at the same time with intermittent hypoxia exposure or mixture of gas exchange, they reduce the first problem. In my first experience, in the first 3 days, the athletes had problem for digestion. Is strictly related for the sensation of suffering by not having the oxygen. It's a really great fault because it's enough also for the little ball for children for reduce this discomfort of the situation.
Just summarising the close relationship you were talking about with the shorter distances. So essentially you're saying athletes realistically should never be that far away from their race food all year round. They should be able to pull out a fast 5 or 10 kilometre.
Yeah. Example. We have
Good question. Because with the same principle as sprinters, if you're a sprinter, why do you want to detrain yourself and not include sprinting in your training all year round, and then all of a sudden doing it in halfway through the
Yeah,
season?
but in my experience, with Raffaello Duceschi, you know it very well because is the race walker with the fast talk. He lives in Barcelona.
Sì.
Yeah, you know. Your best performance is in 10K after the World Cup in New York. We compete in 50K. Why? Studying fair. We prepare specific the 10K 42 minutes. In 20K, 1 hour, 24 and 50K. That's incredible. Okay, it's all the endurance athletes they don't have the power stimulus. After New York, why? Robert Korzeniowski. In January 2000, in 3 weeks. Robert, specific preparation, no, kilometer. But the problem are the same inclusion of high intensity training. During the preparation of 50K, for varied the concentration, okay, today, Jared is kosher, okay, 25K, 4 minutes, 5 seconds by kilometer. Before warm up, you realize 20 repetition of 100 meters. In the mind of Jared, it's not training, it's warm up. But he worked 22 seconds, 23, 24 maximum, 4 minutes, 3, 5, 0, 3, 5, 0, 4, 0. After, from biomechanical point of view, is a good warm-up, but in your memory, there are particular adaptation from a physiological point of view, but in your memory, I remember the capacity. It's not possible to think he had that situation, 90 minutes on 5 kilometers, for me corresponding 39 minutes on 10, corresponding 1 hour. Are the parameter. If you have 10 minutes, 90 minutes on K, 1 hour 22, oriented the planning, oriented the training on the endurance aspects, because the power are good, but are not strictly related for the endurance. But in contrast, if you work for 5K, I think are not more difficult to work example. You have the possibility to reduce 8 seconds, to reduce 7, 6, 10K, 40 minutes equal 4 minutes by K, okay? At the start of the career, they normally are I named not resistance, endurance index. Jared, it is possible you calculate what are your record in 5K?
1841.
Correct. And 10K?
38, 29. 79, 15.
No,
119,
19.
15.
Pardon?
19,
Yeah.
yeah.
336, 53.
Okay. If you multiply 19 for 10, a fantastic record in 50K. For me, here, very good performance. Very, very good. If you have 38 and 29, I think it's possible for your endurance capacity under 1 hour 19 on 20, but at the same time the problem, technical problem, the other problem. Okay. Ivano Brugnetti is a crazy man, a crazy athlete. Why? In 7 won the World Championship of 50K. After, for desperation in training, we realized fantastic performance. He arrived in Sydney, retired, no finish. 2001, no participated Edmonton. 2002, no finish. 2003, in World Cup at Cheboksary, at the 30K, you stay in 4th position. In 500 meters, it arrived in first place every time, and finished the competition. For desperation, I chose the 20K. He realized 18:08 in 5K. The world record in 10K, 37 and 5.8. At 18.59, 18.59, the same. You don't realize your maximum possibility for performance in 20K. Because don't interested only well in the podium. And not importantly, your possibility, in my experience for many data, you have the possibility under 1 hour 18. And I remember this particular session. We realized Ivano Brugnetti in Milan. I am according to Sandro da Milano, in the same day in Saluzzo, Giorgio Rubino, and in Milano, Ivano Brugnetti. After this training, Giorgio Rubino, 1 hour, 19 and 30 in 20K. Okay. The total of time of Giorgio Rubino are 50K, and you realize 1 hour, 90 minutes and 30 seconds. The total of Ivan Vignetti. But very difficult to gestion because he's most talented but don't continue. In Osaka, I decide stay and go. After 500 meters, a little bit. Perez told me in the night, today the judge helped me because Ivano, without the gun, we stopped it. Because in 2007 we realized the most important training of her career. But you have more problem in your life, good training, but every nerve was in Osaka, you suicide before the judge attended. Barking for a ride to Ivano, suicide push. You remember a ride with the head bomb in the road. After competition, Ivano, normally no fatigue. I'm very crying to him because no respect the strategy. If you stay in group, you arrive first or second. Because the training in 2008 in Beijing, the training are more different. Much problem. You